Today, we're going to be making a cactus garden. But the good news is that no fingers were harmed in creating today's episode. We're going to be working with succulents as an interior plantscape decorative item. There are some care challenges that we'll discuss today, but you'll be able to move this zen-like desert garden into your home and enjoy. The first thing I'd like to talk about today are the cactus themselves. There are several different varieties and types. Many times when we think about cactus, we think about that thorny horse crippler cactus that looks like a big ball with all the big spikes coming out. But succulents themselves are also a form of cactus. We've got a few here, the burro's tail, which is extremely popular because the back part of this, all those little individual succulent petals, look like a burro's tail. And when a piece like this pops off, that falls onto the dirt, and that can actually start another plant. That's how succulents reproduce. We've got several different types here, looking down to ones with even little, teeny, tiny petals on them. We have other types as well, some that are called living stones. Let me show you one of those. The living stones generally have large leaves that actually look like a stone. So in this case, they've all been gathered up together. And notice how they almost get like a milky look over the top. That's pretty interesting. Or agave types. This agave, which is what tequila is made out of, has different types of leaves, again, that are more spike-like. They have very sharp thorns on the top of those. Then we have one like this, where the leaves themselves are covered with sharp, thorny spikes. Something like that we really have to be careful with. It's a very popular thing to have cactus nowadays. My job at the Dallas Market Center, we're seeing succulents as a very important part of interior plantscaping. They're very popular because they're easy to care for. I think that's interesting. I travel all the time, so I have succulents in my house because they're easy to care for. They take very little water, and when we do water them, we want to water them just in the morning. That's the best time, and small amounts of water. The root system of the succulents is very shallow. You can see here that this one doesn't have very much root at all. And if we break that away, we're going to see very, very, very small root system. It's very fine. And the water itself can cause decay very, very quickly. It's very fine because those roots want to be able to weave through very hard soil or into rocky, sandy portions of the soil to find the water itself. So we have to remember that. Too much water can be deadly to our succulents. It's important that we use a special type of soil as well. Now this is regular potting soil, and that just won't do for our succulents. Instead, we want to create something called a sandy loam. So what we're going to do is use some decorative sand and add that to our soil. So we have about 1 part sand to 2 parts soil. And we're just going to go ahead and mix that up. I used the colored sand today so that you could see it actually in the soil itself. If you want to use regular sand, that's just fine too. The decorative sand is colored naturally, so we don't have to worry about that hurting our plants. But now look how much looser this sand product is. It's going to be easier for those little fine roots to get through that soil. Drainage is also important. Now we've got several different types of containers here today. We could have one where we could have each individual plant have its own receptacle. Or we have a metal tray like this where we could actually put the plants in their pots down inside. I want to create something that's a little bit more decorative. So I'm going to use this container. But the problem is this is glazed on the inside. So I need to add drainage down inside there along with my sandy loam soil. So I'm going to pour some decorative rocks down on the bottom. I'm going to go a little deeper than normal because normally I just put a thin layer. But in this case, I want to have plenty of room for any moisture to run away from the roots themselves. Now, we'll add a layer of soil on top of those rocks for the drainage. Then, we can start to add our cactus. I'm placing the dirt around the outside so that it holds it up. I don't want the dirt, though, to cover the base itself, because that would also give it a place to rot. This guy looks great at this end. I want to have one as a contrast in between, so I'm going to use the stone cactus in the middle. We'll place him in there and add our soil around the outside. Now I think because this container is white, it would be great to have this one because of all those little white thorns. So that brings me to the JTB trick of the week. I got some great garden gloves that actually have a leather hide on the palm itself. So that's going to allow me to work with this and not get stuck. This way, I can grab that cactus and pull him out and hold him by the top. The leather itself prevents me from getting stuck with this. I'll add a little more soil. You'll notice that I'm pushing it down, but I'm not packing it in there hard. Again, those little roots want to be able to get through that soil. Keeping my gloves on while I'm working this prevents me from getting stuck. Now, number one, I've already given blood this month, so I don't need to give it and get it all over my container. But the other thing is, the thorns on cactus sometimes have barbed ends, so they can get stuck in your finger and also break off, and sometimes they can cause an infection. There's also sap on there, so you want to be careful that you're not getting that into your skin. This is just a good safety feature for me to use while I'm creating this. So now our plants are all in place. Some of the dirt has fallen into the cactus themselves, so I need to clean that out of there. Just grab a pipe cleaner, and that will allow me to brush it out in between there. That soil on top of that plant itself, it's important to remove that as well. You might think right away, I'll just pour water over the top of that and rinse it off. But that would be a really bad idea, especially when working with cactus. We do need to add a touch of water right now to stimulate the root system, but not very much. So using that to wash away the dirt would put way too much water in the bottom of our container. We're going to give just a quick shot to each one of these. Unlike a regular green planter, we don't want to saturate the entire soil. We just want to give a drink over the top of each one. Now we're ready to add a decorative accent to the top of this, because I think this will look great in a white kitchen, and so I want to have that soil be a little bit decorative as well. The other thing about it is the cactus themselves are used to having sands and gravels around them to protect their root system and also help them maintain moisture. One of the things that we'll be able to notice is when the leaves on this rock succulent start to get a little shriveled, it'll be time for us to add water. I'm adding some decorative gravel and some decorative sand. We're going to use a couple different types. I love the decorative stones from Coe. These are the quartz ones, and they look great because they're completely different than the decorative gravel I added first. We'll add it on this side as well, kind of creating a little mosaic type pattern on top of the soil. And we'll also use a little bit of sand to add one more type of texture. I can use a paper towel to clean up my container itself. Now, the last little touch I want to add is something I saw last year in Holland when I was at Horty Fair. I'm going to use some of the Twinklets glitter from Floracraft, and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on top of the soil and on top of the plants itself. It's going to give us a little bit of reflective quality. It just adds a little bit of shimmer and shine. We know that glitter's so popular, so adding a little bit of that to this is that final finishing touch that makes it extra special. So there's our succulent garden, ready to be placed in a house. We know that having living plants inside our house creates great feng shui for our home. And succulents are easy to care for those of you who have busy lives just like me. Remember that succulents are prone to root damage, and we want to make sure that we're only giving them a small amount of water every once in a while, and only in the morning. We have a decorative, beautiful container with the added addition of glitter to spark it up just a little bit. I'd like to thank you, as our JTV viewers, for continuing to inspire us to create new great projects for you to try at home. Until next week, keep having fun with flowers.